And what I am referring to by addressing it or accepting it is if there's something that's bugging me, something that's on my mind, maybe somebody did me wrong, or maybe there's something that's frustrating me about life, there's just something that's on my mind chewing away at me, is I immediately say to myself, okay, well, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to address it? Are you going to do something? If you're not, then shut the hell up and just accept it for what it is. If you're not going to take control to address it, then shut the hell up and accept it. So some of this wishy-washy bullshit in the middle isn't going to help anybody. It's just going to keep me stressed and anxiety. So I have to decide, am I going to do something or not? And if I'm not going to do anything, if it's not that important to do anything with, then why the hell am I letting it ruin my entire damn day? That's very stupid. So I need to just accept it for what it is. So if somebody made a mistake and they did something I felt was wrong, guess what? They're human. I make mistakes too. Forgive them and move on. Or if I feel like it needs addressed, I give myself about 24 hours to kind of make sure I don't address it out of anger. I kind of put together a little bit of a game plan, okay, and then I go and I address it. I get it off my mind by addressing it, or I get it off my mind by accepting it. But there is no wishy-washy bullshit in the middle where you just let that thing chew at you all day. That's going to create stress. That's going to create anxiety. It's going to fatigue your mental system, your emotional system. So you might have an anxiety attack or stress later on that feels like it's unrelated, but it's because you wore yourself out with that stupid thought all day. So in podcast number 157, we discussed this mindset of address it or accept it. So you can go listen to that podcast if you'd like more information about that. But that was something that was extremely, extremely important for me to recognize that when I let things mull over in my brain, that is wearing me down. That is causing mental fatigue, emotional fatigue. So I want to address it or accept it. If there's something that's bugging at me, if it's not important enough and I'm not going to do anything about it, then shut the hell up and put it away. So accept it for what it is. Or if I'm going to address it, give myself 24 hours, try to address it out of love, and just move on. Address it and move on and let it see where it goes. So those are some big things I did for time, energy, and stress management. So I got up early, got my most important stuff done for the day. I also paid attention to eating consistently throughout the day, making sure I didn't have lulls or missed meals earlier in the day, which caused fatigue and stress later in the day. And then I made sure in my mindset I accepted it or I addressed it. Now, the people priority list in better management of time, energy, and stress, they're all helpful. Okay, they all sound good. But you also have to learn to be okay with saying no to other people. So that's part of the guilt that we feel is when we make good decisions is we have to say no to people to make good decisions sometimes. And it can be hard to know when is the time that I can say no and still be a good person? When is the time that I can say no when I know it's necessary for my own health, but not hurt the other person or let them feel like they got hurt? So, first of all, people are going to feel hurt sometimes no matter what choice you make. So, we're going to talk a little bit about how to say no to others. And there are great books out there. So, there's a book called Boundaries. That is a great book for learning how to say no to other people, but still feel like you're a good person. And one of the analogies I kind of think of that I cling to that I like is, and I've talked about this in past podcasts, is say like you're hiking in the woods, and let's give the example of a dad and a son, or a mom and a daughter, or a parent and a child. Okay, is they're walking through the woods, they're doing like a backpack hike, so they each have a backpack, and they're walking along, and they come up to a river. Well, there's a thin log over the river, and the parent looks at the child and they're like, well, they can probably get across that log, but if they have that backpack on, it's going to make it really hard for them. So let me take their backpack. I'll take that burden from them. I'll let them walk across the river, then I'll walk across the river as well, carrying their burden. But then on the other side of the river, I'll give them their backpack back. So if we're hiking in the woods, we get to a river and we know we're going to continue to hike afterwards, after we cross the river. There's still more trail to go. You give them the backpack back. So I can help someone temporarily cross a river, okay, cross a hardship in their life. But I have to give them back their burden so they learn how to deal with it on their own, how they can strengthen themselves to that burden. So we can help people, but we should only help them temporarily. If you take their burden from them, they will never get strong enough to handle their own burdens. The next burden that comes, they'll hand off to somebody else. The next burden that comes, they'll hand off to somebody else. So you teach them to give away their troubles rather than to strengthen themselves to their trouble. This is extremely important. And I feel this is absolutely necessary to help everyone else live the best life as much as you would want to be helped to live yours. I would hope that the people who love me most challenge me to grow to become a better person. Not that they just protect me from the world and let me stay as I am. I hope they love me enough not to let me stay here. And that is very important. So if you do truly want to help other people, sometimes saying no is the best way to help them. Okay? So our help is supposed to be when it's needed, as like temporarily needed, and then given back to them. So one of the other things I think of to myself is I also only try to help people who are also helping themselves. So if somebody is asking for help, but they're sitting there with their arms folded and not doing shit themselves, you're probably not going to get much help from me. So you need to start helping yourself to show that there's a desire and there's a want to become better. If I don't feel like the person's doing that, but I know they're capable of it, and I can see the pathway for them, I'll help them and I'll maybe nudge them in the direction I want them to go. But I kind of nudge them as a coasting thing. So it's kind of like a parent where, like, if you're teaching your child how to ride a bike without training wheels, you kind of like get them started, you run with them, you get them started, and then you let go of the bike. And if they crash and fail, well, shit, that's part of the process. So that's just the way it goes sometimes. But they have to then get back up, they have to get back on the bike, and they have to ask you to help them again. So if they fall off the bike and they just lay on the ground, that's their own doing. They have to wallow in their sorrow for the time being. But when they're ready for more help, they'll ask, and then you can help them. So that is a very, very, very important thing, that if you truly love people, you will challenge them to become their best. And you will let life challenge them in the moments that you know they can come up to that challenge. So if you see a chance for someone to grow, don't take that opportunity from them. Don't take that away from them. Okay? So help is supposed to be given in small bursts. So when you give somebody crutches after they break their leg, they're not going to use those crutches for the rest of their freaking life. Once the leg's healed, they have to learn how to walk on that leg again. So this is very important when we say no to other people, is to recognize that the help that we should give should be to people who are asking for the help. They're showing excitement and eagerness to use the help. And that our help should only be temporary. Okay? So that's what we have to decide. Is when we're faced with decisions that involve others, is we have to, first of all, adhere to our people priority list. Who is most important to me? So will helping this person hurt somebody of a higher priority? That's something we have to consider. We also have to take into account how full your cup is. If your cup is empty, do not accept helping somebody else at that time. Refill your cup first, whatever that takes, so you actually have something to pour into their life. You can't pour from an empty cup. You must fill your cup first before you say yes. Then, if somebody's asking for your help and the decision you make involves somebody else, are they even helping themselves? So, are they going to be a dead weight on you? Or are they just asking for temporary assistance to help them move forward in their life? If that's true, then go ahead and do it. So if their help does not hurt anybody of a higher priority, and if you have some in your cup to give, and that you know they're working to better themselves, and this will help them do so, then it's 100% appropriate. Help them as much as you can. Okay? So you want to ask How can I assist them in life? Not what can I do for them. You don't want to do things for people, you want to assist them. That is a big difference. So if you approach helping others as what can you do to assist them in their journey, that will give you a much better, clear vision of what to do rather than thinking of what can you do for them. We don't want to do things for people. We want to assist people. Okay? Assisting means they're putting in some effort on their own. And that is very important. So, we've talked about having a people priority list. We talked about time, energy, and stress management. All of that allows you to make clear decisions, like a little bit less anxiety. It helps you make sure that you have your cup full. We then recognize now when it might be appropriate to say yes or no to people. And then finally, the last thing we're going to discuss about dealing with guilt over good decisions is the what ifs. So you made a good choice for yourself, but that does sometimes come with the cost of something else being lost. So I might have moved forward in one area of my life, but in order to do so, I had to say no to other opportunities or to other people. So when you make a choice, you analyze the pros and cons before you make the choice, okay? What's the good things? What's the bad things? What am I going to gain? What am I going to lose? And then once you make the choice, analyzing those pros and cons should be done. So typically what we consider analyzing pros and cons after a decision is made is that's when we're playing the game of the what if. What if I had done this? What if I had done that? That's what is the pros of my choice after I've made it, or what are the cons of my choice after I made it. That's what you're doing by considering what ifs. So pros and cons, the decision, the tallying of those categories and the factors that they play into the decision, that is all done before the decision, not after. So if you're playing the what if game after your decision, it's too damn late. That decision was made. You've got to roll with it. Stop playing the what ifs and just play with the what nows. Okay? So you got to move on. So weighing the pros and cons, you then make your choice, and then you've got to kind of like plant your flag in confidence of this choice was made. So here's the reasons why I made this choice. I recognize I'm giving these things up, but I made the choice. This is what's best for me. Boom, done. You make the choice and you do not look back. Okay? You can't play the pros and cons game after the choice is made. It's already made. So let the what ifs stop when the choice is made. Okay? So we have to think of it is when we make a choice, the processing of that choice ends. That is the ending of the thought process behind the pros and cons. So if you think of relationships, if you had to end a bad relationship, this is sometimes the cause of guilt. Because a person had to make a choice that was good for their health, but they feel bad about the effects on the other person. And often when we end a bad relationship, there were things that were good within it. Maybe you had a good connection with the person. You had good, good sense of humor. You shared good times together. There were good memories. Maybe you had good intimacy, good moments like where you felt connected with each other. They were probably still good things within that bad relationship. And it sucks to lose the good stuff. It really does. So we commonly have remorse over the loss of the good stuff. But often in complicated and complex choices, good things sometimes need to be let go for the greater good. And that's unfortunately something that can't be avoided. So often in big, messy life choices, in order to take care of or address really big negatives, you have to sometimes lose small positives. And yes, that is just the way life works. So it's a bummer, but it's unavoidable. So there's the phrase, you can't make an omelet without breaking some eggs. Breaking some yolks. So you can't make an omelet without breaking some yolks. That's true. So sometimes small goods need to be broken to create a greater good. And Again, we kind of have to like plant our flag in the decisions that we make. If we weighed the pros and cons and we realized that we will lose some small goods, but it must be lost in order for this greater good, then once you make that decision, you stop playing the what ifs. You plant your flag in the decision you made, it's done. You move on. Okay? So if you have a new job opportunity and it will benefit your happiness, it'll benefit your family, but it means you have to leave some really cool co-workers that you shared a long time together with and you really enjoyed. Well, unfortunately, that's a necessary evil. So that's a small good of enjoying coworkers that must be lost for the greater good of a better job. And that's something we have to accept. So that's the address it or accept it kind of concept. So we just have to accept that sometimes helps. Sometimes happens. So if I want to create a new self, okay, I want to do better things in my life. Sometimes that means we have to leave old friends. So a lot of people experience this when they transition from high school to college or college to adulthood is you might have had that one real fun friend. They were fun to have around, but they weren't a positive influence in your life. And you must leave that person to become a new person yourself. Yeah, that sucks. And sometimes those people, are going to say snarky remarks or like, oh, you think you're better than me now or all this other stuff. And you just have to let that roll off your back. You have to recognize that, yeah, unfortunately, there is going to be some hurt there. But I know the decision I'm making is better for me in the long run. So I'm going to find confidence. I'm going to find peace in the betterment of myself, despite the lost negatives, and the lost goods, stuff like that. You just have to decide that this is what's best for me. I'm making my choice and I'm going to move on. So if you want to build new character, sometimes that means leaving behind old habits and maybe habits you kind of liked. Maybe there were vices that you actually enjoyed. But you've got to let them go in order to become your better self. That's a choice that you've got to make and you've got to accept that you're making it. So you have to accept that you will lose good things in life. But if you know you're leveling up, if you know you're doing something for the greater good, then that's just something you have to accept as part of life. And in messy choices, that's why they are so hard to make. That's why a lot of people struggle with them, is because there's blended goods and bads. So you have to weigh the pros and cons beforehand, find out what is the goods of this decision. Then what are the losses of this decision? If the greater good will come of it, you have to accept that and then make your decision. And once your decision is made, it's done. You do not continue to analyze it. You do not continue to play the what ifs. You made a smart decision that was the best decision for your future. Okay? Find confidence in that and move on. Cool. So, that's basically what we want to do if we want to try to help ourselves get through guilt of good decisions, is make sure you're making clear choices. And one of the things that helps is having a people priority list. Make sure you're taking care of your cup. Okay? You got to fill your cup. That means you got to take care of time management, energy management, stress management. So you have to make sure you take care of yourself so you can then best take care of other people. Okay? You have to, part of that, like we said, of stress management is learning to address it or accept it. So if there's something that's gnawing away at you on your mind, you either have to choose to address it within 24 hours or you're going to accept it. But eventually you have to let that thing go. So that way you don't continue to chew away at your mental and emotional health. And then the last thing we have to do is be able to reduce guilt over decisions. We have to learn when it's okay to say no to other people. And we have to learn to accept small losses for bigger gains. Okay. So hopefully this gave you some food for thought. It was definitely a lot longer than I expected it to be. But hopefully there's value in this. And these are the steps that I took to have much, much, much greater control over my anxiety. And the friend that I was talking with, they found some similar things that they had done, and then they actually took some of this advice and said it had helped already. So these are things that I hope can bring more happiness into your life. So the podcast is supposed to bring health and happiness, and I want to make sure we always have both. So it does no good to have six-pack abs, but have a negative mindset or being emotionally hurt and drained in life. So we want you to be happy as well as healthy. Cool. Okay, if you need any help in implementing this stuff at all, please reach out to us at brutalirongym@gmail.com. So you've listened to this for 50 minutes, okay? So I want to make sure you get something from it. So if there's anything you need to implement this, and make sure that you start taking control of your anxiety, start taking control over the guilt that you might feel, please reach out to us. Our email is brutalirongym@gmail.com. Okay. If you like this information, you can find more from us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, Brutal Iron Gym. Also, if you like the podcast, please share it with other people, please. The more people we help, the happier the world will be. And if you have any questions, feedback, or suggestions, we'd love to hear from you. The podcast is for you, so we'll know what you want to learn about. And you can tell us at our email, brutalirongym@gmail.com. As always, I hope this was helpful, and thank you for listening.